Yeah, it's not easy. But let's get more information. Let's dig more into whether we are in the UK like to spend or save at this time of year. I'm going to guess that people probably like to spend. But Patricia, Bright, welcome to the show. Great to have you on board.
Thank you for having me, Jimmy. Yes, they do like to spend at this time of year. We're getting into festive mass where we think a little bit differently about spending when Christmas is around the corner.
And just for our listeners, Patricia, I mean, you're a creator and entrepreneur, and I mean, in terms of the research, what does the research suggest around sort of spending patterns this time of year?
Yeah, so PayPal recently did a report and actually found that 72% of people plan to have a budget, but 40% of people exceed on that and overspend. And that sounds about right, because it's great to put a budget in place, but it's quite hard to really stick to it. And there's a number of reasons around that. Number one, things are just costing more. A lot of people are feeling the pinch. Inflation is here, and that's actually one of the number reasons why people are spending a lot more money. But also something I thought really was fascinating is rationalization. 43% of people want to spend on their loved ones, and they feel like this is the time of year that they're going to do it. So I, for one, know that sometimes I might overspend during Christmas, but it feels like it's worthwhile if it's for someone that I really care about.
No, absolutely. That's some really, really great points, and I can relate to that, Patricia. I mean, certainly the inflation. Sometimes you go to the shop, even to buy a few bits and pieces, and you think, hey, how much type thing, you know? And it's one of them. But equally, like you said, with the rationalisation, I mean, sometimes I think, I'm sure our listeners do as well, but you start spending sort of, you just don't take the time to think about what, maybe buy stuff that we don't need anyway. But you made a really good point there, obviously, sort of like, I think it's nice to sort of, buy something for someone to show appreciation, as well. But sort of what's your take on that? What does the sort of research suggest that people, like in terms of spending money on things that are important to them?
Well, the reality is Christmas is about your family, your friends, connection, or even just taking a break and vegging out. And I think it's really important for people to remember that first and foremost. You don't have to break the bank, especially if you don't have the resources to do that. And you want to find out what is the best way, if you are going to spend, to get the best prices and the best offers. So some of the things that people are doing, 4 in 10 people, they're redeeming loyalty points. They're using the points that they gather over the year and working with their retailers to actually make money back after spending money throughout the year. People are also spending on smaller gifts and even re-gifting, which is something that I've really got into doing myself now.
No, absolutely, that sort of makes sense. So for sure, definitely. And have you got sort of any sort of tips? I know it's difficult. Obviously, everyone has their own sort of ways they sort of go out and buy gifts. But have you got any sort of insights, Fiona, in terms of what where people can look to find maybe gifts that can meet a price range for them?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, re-gifting. Sometimes you might look in your home, you might have clothes with labels on it, unworn, or, presents. I know it sounds crazy, but presents that people have bought you before, you may not have opened them, you may not have used it. That perfume might have not been the fragrance for you, or something didn't quite match, or you never wore those socks. You can repackage them and give them. Now, not to the person who gave it to you, but maybe to your wider circle, or use it for a secret Santa. This is one thing that you can do, but also using online platforms to find the voucher codes and take some time to dig, because there are coupons and options available.
No, I mean, that's sort of, when you mention not to the person who gave it to you, I mean, is there an exception for that? If Patricia, if you don't like the gift that they've given it to you, you can take it back now, type thing. So, absolutely,
people are even giving people a receipt. So if you want to use the receipt and return it and use the cash, that's up to you. But it does kind of, take away a little bit from the spirit of Christmas.
No, absolutely, 100%. I think it's, you're right. I think that the rationalisation thing that you mentioned there, I think makes a lot of sense, because we can get caught up in the spirit of things and and that sort of stuff really. And obviously there are ways of means people can get things like credit, and I'm not saying everyone can, but some people can, and then you just go over your budget really. And I mean, obviously yourself, you're an entrepreneur and you're sort of creator, and I mean, sort of for people like for the rationalized part, is there anything sort of you could sort of suggest if people get sort of caught up in it all and maybe do push themselves beyond what they can afford? Is there sort of any suggestions? Should they just stop and think about things, or maybe sort of, is there any sort of tips you can give people who maybe might get caught up in the emotion of it all and overspend what they can't afford?
Yeah, I think one of the key things is just keeping an eye on things. A lot of people put their hands over their eyes and just spend. They put the credit card in, they hope for the best, they don't use cash or they don't use online platforms. And I think that's just the biggest mistake. You don't have to be afraid of money. I love, for instance, using PayPal online, so I can track my transactions, I can see how much I'm spending, I can put the brakes on when I need to, and tweak things as I go. You can spend, but just be aware of what you're doing.
Absolutely. I mean, it's sort of really rare that I sort of go to a shop, Patricia, and I the bill is less than what I thought it would be, type thing. It's been a long time since I can remember where just things seems to be going up all the time, really. And so that there is that, and there's also, and I suppose like at this time of year, it's not just about gifts too. It's also like like food and other things as well, really. Maybe things we wouldn't normally buy as well, that we do buy this time of year, and as well as that. I mean, do you find that sort of that's useful too, to kind of track, like from a shopping perspective, maybe not, overbuying as well?
Yeah, listen, track everything, right? Keep an eye on things and you'll be in control. Don't let things get out of hand where possible. But again, remember what this time of year is about. It's not just about the buying. It is literally about who you've got around the table and have a good time. And if all you've got is, mulled wine and the chance to watch a TV show together, then that might be good enough.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great shout, to be fair. I think, definitely it's easy to kind of get sort of caught up in it all as well, and enjoy it. If you've got time off as well. A lot of people got time off this time of year as well, and see family, catch up with people you haven't seen before. That's sort of priceless, to be fair. There's a lot of things you can do as well that don't, break the bank. But I think that, you've made a really good point there for sure, and particularly this time of year to stop and kind of process things for sure, definitely. But it's been really interesting sort of speaking to you. If anyone wants to see more about your work or the research, anything like that, can you signpost them anywhere?
Yeah, I mean, PayPal, the Money Hub, for really great information and tips and advice around budgeting, especially during the festive season.
Absolutely. I'll check that out myself, to be fair, as we sort of start to move towards that, closer and closer to the Christmas break. And that sounds really interesting. Thanks for your time. It's been really interesting and informative, and have a great day and a great Christmas. Thank you.
So, thank you, Jimmy.